Hello there, I just wanted to preface this video because in this I do touch a little bit about the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA strikes and what that means for me and myself as a content creator, someone that talks about these new movies and these new releases every time I get the chance. So I touched a little bit about what that means for me. And even now, there's still news coming out. There's still things that they're saying, that they're changing. SAG-AFTRA released an article saying that they would want content creators to refrain from talking about new releases. But then there's other news articles that are saying that we can, as long as we put a statement out. At this time, everything I said in this video, I feel like I shouldn't talk about the new releases, even on Letterboxd. I feel like I shouldn't review the movie or even give it a Letterboxd star rating, just so that it doesn't drive any promotion to these companies until they give actors and writers fair wages. However, like I said, a lot of stuff is coming out constantly about what we can and cannot do. The last thing I want is to try and make it look like I'm trying to find loopholes to talk about new releases just because I want to. While I am passionate about this is something I would love to do as a career one day. I will always stand with the actors and writers that are single-handedly bringing us these pieces of content, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. So that's what's most important. Coming to a fair deal is what's most important. I am gonna make a full video explaining what I am gonna do and anything that I can do, and explaining everything about my content and me and what I'll do during these strikes. And it has nothing to do with me not wanting to get in trouble or me thinking about getting in trouble and trying to play it safe. It's more just I want to do anything I can to help these actors and these writers get paid fair wages and fair deals from these studios that have their heads in their asses. So I touch on it a little bit here. I don't know if that's subject to change. This is why I'm making this disclaimer. I am gonna come out with a full video, and I am gonna touch on everything here soon. I am just waiting for more news. So without further ado, enjoy my review for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Hello there and welcome back to the channel. My name is Aiden H Talks. I rank, review, and react to all types of movie media. And today we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, just to address the elephant in the room, this may or may not be my last movie review. Now, not as a whole, this isn't the last video I will ever make, nothing like that. I have a passion for doing these reviews and these reactions. I love creating content. I've been doing it over movies and Marvel and all that type of stuff for a little over a year and a half. I think maybe even 2 years now. But with the writer's strike, with the actors now going on strike with them for the first time in about 60 years, I have to come to a decision. I have to come to a choice about how I'm gonna go about making content. I am gonna do a lot more research. I'm gonna look into it a lot more. From what I'm seeing and from what SAG has dropped today about influencers and people that make content about these movies, such as myself, I don't think I'm going to be doing any new movie reactions, and especially not for struck companies. I don't make money off of anything I do on YouTube. The only money I make off of doing this stuff is on TikTok, and that's about a couple cents a video, just to be completely transparent. And any other money that I make comes from other brand deals, and that's nothing. So far, it hasn't been anything from any big companies. It hasn't been anything from these struck companies. It's been more of just like apps, movie apps. I've done one for an app. I've done one for like a clothing brand, and that has been it. In the future, in the next couple of months, if the strike is still going on and I do get asked to promote anything, I won't. Same goes for reviews, whether I'm getting paid to do them or not. I don't think I will. These actors and these writers bring us these shows and movies that we love today. So for them to not get paid fair wages, for these studios to talk about them the way that they have just because they're on strike for these wages, and even wanting to implement AI and use people's likeness for one day's pay and use it for the rest of eternity. It's all bullshit. And I am gonna have a video that comes out later on. I might record it as soon as I finish recording the Mission Impossible review that I'm doing today. If anything, I'm just gonna be talking about old movies. I'm just gonna be finding different ways to still post, because this is genuinely what I love to do. but I won't be reviewing any new movies until a fair deal is reached. And as much as that might hurt my YouTube, as much as that might hurt my social media, this is something that's bigger than all of that. And I am perfectly fine putting all of that on hold to stand with the actors and the writers and to stand against these companies that have their heads so far up their asses that they can't seem to reach that with them. So whether I'm making money on this stuff or not, whether I'm getting paid to do stuff or not, I still feel like as someone with a tiny account, as someone that has only been doing this for a little bit, that doesn't have too much of a following, that this video might not even get a ton of views, I still feel like I should do my part and stand with all of them. So with that being said, I'm gonna cover Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm gonna get this review out of the way, and then after this, I will not be touching on any other new releases until a fair deal is reached. So with all of that being said, again, I'm gonna have a full video coming out later explaining my stance and explaining everything that I just stated. Let's get into Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Rated PG-13, came out this year, obviously, action and adventure, a whopping 2 hours and 43 minutes. In Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Ethan Hunt and his IMF team embark on their most dangerous mission yet, to track down a terrifying new weapon that threatens all of humanity before it falls into the wrong hands. With control of the future and the fate of the world at stake and dark forces from Ethan's past closing in, a deadly race around the globe begins. Confronted by a mysterious, all-powerful enemy, Ethan is forced to consider that nothing can matter more than his mission, not even the lives of those he cares about most. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 has a 96% critic score and a 94% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Whopping praise for this movie, and very deservedly so. I don't know how I'm gonna go about this review. I'm still ironing out all of the wrinkles about how I go about reviewing these movies, but I wanna start with the characters. Because in Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, a common problem I had was that there wasn't a lot of constant characters. I wanted a group that we could follow from 4 to 7, or from 1 to 7. And again, that was easily fixed as soon as we got to Ghost Protocol. And I think even in Mission Impossible 2 or 3, we got introduced to Benji and Luther. So now our big three is Benji, Luther, and Ethan Hunt. And that's what I loved so much about those early movies. And even in 4, 5, and 6, I loved those characters a lot. In this one, I was missing Jeremy Renner's character a ton. And, you know, there's been a lot of love interests and girls that have come and gone, the women in this franchise. And that seems to be something that the franchise just has close to them. It's the same thing with the villains. There aren't ever any returning villains except for in Rogue Nation and Ghost, I believe, or Rogue Nation and Fallout, I believe. We have the villain overarching, and then we have Henry Cavill being kind of the side villain in Fallout. In this one, we have our returning characters. We have Ilsa, we have Benji, we have Luther, and then we have a new addition of Haley Atwell, which I will touch on all of that later. But overall, I think the characters in this are really, really good. I had a fun time. I had such a blast just basking in all of their chemistry, especially with Benji, Ethan, and Luther. The big three. I loved it so much. It made it so fun. I just love the chemistry, the charisma, and the humor that they all bring to the table in this big action movie and all of these big action spectacles. It makes that character work feel so precious when that's in the background of these huge sequences of Tom Cruise doing these huge stunts. It makes the movie that much more special. So as a whole, I think the character work was beautiful. There was a time, I can't lie, in the second act where it did start to feel a little bit draggy. It was dragging on quite a bit. There was some characters I was looking at and I was like, well, they haven't had much to do at all. Some of them haven't even had that much lines of dialogue. They haven't talked nearly as much in this entire movie as some of the others, but towards the end of the third act, that all gets wrapped up beautifully. But I can't lie, for a little bit in that second act, I was starting to feel it a bit. And I wouldn't say the same goes for the plot of the movie. I think it was all paced very well. There are some action sequences that I felt went on way too long that kind of took me out of the movie, where I was just kind of waiting for it to pick back up again. But overall, the plot is very concise. You have your villains, you have the plan, you have the mission if you choose to accept it, and we have the conclusion. Now, this isn't a cliffhanger, so it feels like somewhat of a complete movie, but still, we do know that that part 2 is coming. But even with that, I think the plot did flow very well. It's really just what they did with the characters that in that second act, I did start to feel it big time. Now, it is a little bit of a risk having AI be your main villain in the movie. I feel like that could take a lot of people out. And even starting off your cold open with a submarine exploding and being trapped at the bottom of the ocean where nobody can find it, after events that happened in real life oddly similar to that. Some of that stuff was able to suck me out of the movie real quick, but it was never really a glaring issue to me. Now, in the grand scheme of this franchise, and more specifically 4, 5, and 6, Mission Impossible 7, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 has a lot of moments that I could put above 4, 5, and 6, but it also does have some moments that I would put below. The action sequences are amazing. There's a big train sequence, and of course, Tom Cruise jumping off a cliff and diving into the train. It's all fantastic. Those tense sequences where you're just gripping your chair and you're on the edge of your seat, they all work so well. And Dead Reckoning focuses on that so much. They let you live in those tense moments. At the end of the movie, I turned over to my buddy and I said, I am sweating. That was genuinely insane. I'm sweating, and I kid you not, I was in my seat after some of those sequences. Everything in that last sequence on that train wraps everybody's story up perfectly. We have everybody that we've touched on in the movie all in one setting, and things are just firing left and right, and it honestly is so gorgeous. I fell in love with that last 30 minutes, that last 45 to 30 minutes. I think it just made the movie that much better for me. Now, with that being said, I do think Fallout has the better villain. It did have a better plot, me personally. I think overall Fallout is the better movie. There's just a lot of stuff that it did better, but there also is some things in Dead Reckoning that I liked a little bit more. So overall, it is challenging. It is a big tug of war. I do think Fallout is the better movie, but again, Dead Reckoning can make a damn case for itself, especially with Part 2 coming out and gearing up to be one of the best in the entire franchise. Dead Reckoning did a great job at setting those stakes, setting that story up so that Part 2 can just knock it out of the park. So is Dead Reckoning the best movie in the franchise? I don't think so. I do think it is just a little bit below Fallout, falling in at a score of 89 out of 100. Now, quick spoiler warning for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. There is some things I talked about earlier that I need to get a little bit more in depth on so that you can understand my stance on these characters. So 3, 2, 1. Now, my problem with Hayley Atwell's character has nothing to do with Hayley Atwell herself or how she played the character. I thought it was perfect. She was a great addition to this movie, 1000%. My problem comes with Ilsa's death. That was one of the only moments in recent memory that I can feel a character's death in my heart and soul. I was genuinely pissed off when they killed her off. Again, it just elevates the villain of Gabriel, but man, was I so upset. I was so upset. And then Hayley Atwell comes in after constantly not trusting Ethan the whole movie, which I understand, that's her character. Not trusting him the entire movie, and then she sits down and they do the typical trope where she says, man, I really feel like that was my fault, and Luther says, it wasn't your fault. Yes, it was 1000% your fault, and you just got one of my favorite characters killed off. What are you gonna do to redeem yourself? So then she sits there and she's talking to everyone in the room, and they say, you know what, even though we don't really know you that much, we're gonna bring you in. You need to make a choice. And if you make the choice to stay with us, we're gonna bring you in like family. And then Ethan says, I will give my life for you, essentially. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This is one of y'all's first times meeting her in person. And now she's just welcomed in with open arms after not trusting you the entire series. Look, I understand that's her character, and from here on out, she gets 1,000 times better, and by the end of the movie, she's perfect. I thought she was an amazing addition. But man, I can't lie, in that moment, I was just sitting there like, man, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it was paid off at the end of the movie. It was done right by me, but for a split second, I mean, not even for a split second, for a little bit in that second act, there was a lot of moments where I was like, genuinely mad, and I was thinking, what are we doing here? Why are we going this direction? But it was quickly fixed. So that was really all I had a problem with Hayley Atwell. And then the other character, the character of Paris, I believe her name is, by Palm Clementine. If I'm getting that wrong, I deeply apologize. But everything with her up until that last action set piece, up until the third act, she was just this mercenary. She was Gabriel's right-hand woman that was just setting out to kill Ethan Hunt at any means possible. And then we get to the final act where she's sitting there and Gabriel ends up turning on her and trying to kill her, and then she comes to terms with everything and helps Ethan Hunt escape. So I could really appreciate that. But again, in the second act, I was having some problems with it. So that was about it. You know, I didn't absolutely hate any of the characters involved. I just thought in the second act for a bit, it was getting a little bit rough for me. But of course, by the end of the movie, it was all paid off and I loved it a ton. The only thing I had a problem with was that they killed Isla. They killed Rebecca Ferguson's character. And I was so excited to see her go on this mission with the IMF. I was so excited, especially after everything with Fallout. I was so excited for her addition and she got killed off. So that's just more me being sad and grumpy about it. It hurts. It still hurts even talking about it right now. But overall, I still love the movie. This is great. It falls as my 7th favorite movie of the year. I'll have it all up right here. And I will also have my Mission Impossible franchise ranking right here as well. So overall, I had a wonderful time. I'm so excited for Dead Reckoning Part 2. Again, let's all just hope that a fair deal is struck with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. Because again, all of this is getting out of hand. These studios have their heads up their asses, and let's just hope they come to a fair deal soon. Because I love my movies, but you know what? If this is what it takes, if striking and not posting anything is what it takes to get these actors to keep doing what they love for our entertainment, if this is what it takes, so be it. I will be standing with them. So I don't know when I'll be seeing you. I don't know when I'll be seeing you with a new review, but I hope it's soon. Until then, I'll figure out my content and I hope you stick around to see where I take it. And without further ado, that's my review. Thank you. I will see you in the next one. Peace.